What's going on, people?
Cracking, my man.
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Welcome to my not so humble abode. Once again.
Welcome everyone to Your Mate, the second episode of Your Mate podcast.
Your Mate podcast.
Wow.
Your Mate.
Your Mate.
Yeah?
How you been, man?
Yeah, man, I can't complain, bro. You know, it's been a wild time, as you know, like we discussed last time. Everything that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not get too much into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. Let me tell you, there was a big growth period for me the last 3 months, changing my mentality,
Yeah, man.
refocusing, doing this with you. You know, it's all been very different. So, yeah. And what about you?
Well, the thing that's been different with me is the gym in the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, you were super stoked the other day about it.
I'm so happy to be back in the gym, and they've given up 45 minutes, so you got to be in and out like a bank robbery.
Yeah.
So
how long would you normally spend in there?
I normally spend about an hour.
Okay.
So now it's 45 minutes. It just, I reduce my rest time, so my heart rate is just bang, bang. It's a lot better, actually. It's a better thing for me. So, yeah, it's good. I always laugh at people when I see them on the treadmill now. Straight away, the first thing that they do is go on the treadmill.
Clowns.
People are there talking. I'm like, you got 45 minutes. What are you talking for?
Man, seriously, because it's like they missed
It's a social thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't have time to train. You gotta go. But for me, like I don't even make eye contact with people anymore. I just go in, get it done, and get out.
Are you big on eye contact in general?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I like to say hello to people. Like, why do you have your head down?
Yeah.
If you have your head down more than once or twice, if you see me, you got your head down, the third time, I won't make eye contact with you. I won't bother.
Fair enough.
You've already indicated to me that you don't want to say hello.
Okay.
And if you're too shy, there's a fine line between being shy and being rude.
Right. I didn't even think about those kind of things, but you're right.
Man,
That's true.
I've got to figure out whether you're
Yeah.
rude or not. Like, that's too much work for me.
It
is. It's not my job.
Yeah, right.
Correct. It's not my job. So,
yeah.
people say, "Oh, I'm shy." Yeah, you kind of gotta work on that because you're among other humans. You can't. If you can't handle that, stay home. Never come out.
What if they're naturally just like one of those awkward people? Naturally introverted human beings. Awkward about.
Can't say hello.
Agoraphobic or something like that, and they just don't like people. And
whew.
There are some people, they can't handle being around others.
Sure.
And being out in the world, so they
sure.
kind of cope.
Man, good luck to you in life.
True. Like the only thing you can do is become someone who does something like coding.
Seriously.
Or like a really non.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. I don't know how to. Then I guess there's no point in me speaking with you.
You don't even bother, man.
Then it works out well.
If you don't want
you put your head down, and I don't say hello.
Right.
It works out for everyone.
Yeah,
that's all good.
There you go. So there's a positive.
We're solving the world's problems.
Solving world's problems.
Yeah, I do think that's strange though, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I feel like I don't really need to. Naturally, because I'm an extrovert, I think I just look at people and I engage with people.
Yeah.
But there are times where I'm just like, nah. If I'm gonna roll in the coals, eyes down, get to the shopping. Sometimes.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Oh no, of course. There's some times where you just don't have time. You got to get things done, and there are other times where, for the most part, people just need to get to know someone. That's different. That's why we're having so many issues. You don't know me.
I agree.
You don't know people who look like me or act like me, and so when you eventually have to communicate with me, you're freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. That's pretty sad.
It is very sad. It's not a great way to get to know someone.
Yeah.
You want to kind of make it, when you've got the opportunity, you have to kind of take it and say hello to people.
Agreed.
Don't be so awkward, people. Come on.
Do you have some advice for people like that? Tips?
Ooh, okay. That's I've never really. No, fair enough. If I'm gonna sit on the other side of the fence, I should have some tips and ideas. You almost have to mentally work yourself into it.
Yeah.
You can't just go, "Oh, I'm going to do it," because that's not natural to that individual. So you have to sit back when you're at home, think about how you're going to go about this, and just go, "Okay, I'm going to at least say hello to one person, or I'm going to try to make eye contact with one person, and when they say hello, I'm going to say hello, and I'm going to find out about them."
Yep.
What's people's favorite subject? Themselves.
Yes. Dude. See, real talk though,
It's themselves. People just love to talk about themselves. So
That's
all you
very
got to do is just get them talking about themselves.
Yeah.
As an introvert, that's all you got to do is listen.
100%.
They're gonna ask you a question,
Yeah.
and you just kind of you answer the question, but you can bring it back to that person if you feel uncomfortable or
Yeah.
awkward. Then you go from there, and then later on you're like, oh, I did that,
Mm-hmm.
and then next time you can tell them a little bit more about yourself. But
Yeah.
just continue to ask people about themselves. You're gonna learn. What's the worst case scenario? You learned a lot about someone else, or you learned a lot about extroverts.
Yeah. Mm.
You learn something.
And it's good. It helps you in social scenarios,
It ain't-
workplace scenarios. Getting what you want. I know this sounds really bad, but it does help you in terms of benefiting yourself personally from those relationships.
Absolutely.
You know.
Listen, if you don't benefit from those things, you end up being a little bit bitter.
Yep.
You don't know how to solve it,
Yeah.
so it irks you and annoys you. It's natural to be bitter or to be bitter about something that you can't. Not bitter, but if you can't work on it, it's just tough.
Yeah.
You need to kind of take that step.
True.
And so yeah, that's my
Akwasi,
example, I guess.
your mate here offering you some advice. I think that's good advice. And there's also just throwing a random plug of one of my favorite books of all time that helped me navigate things in Australia when I was a young African here and just trying to make friends and how to make friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie.
I've got that.
Such a fantastic book in terms of doing exactly what you're talking
Oh, really?
about. Pushing your because the book doesn't also provide you with frameworks, but it also challenges you to do those things in real life. So asks you to engage in those conversations, talk about others, because that's what they want, and it gives you framework, but also assignments to do in real life.
Good.
So it's a really good book if you're ever interested in trying to navigate friendships and getting out of your comfort zone.
I read that book, and no, I didn't read the book. I read the first 10 pages and I put it away. I was like,
you don't need that. Someone like you doesn't need it.
I don't think I put it away because I was like, I'm kind of doing a lot of this anyway.
Yeah.
You have to push yourself.
True.
And get yourself in uncomfortable positions, and you're gonna grow.
Yep.
I truly believe that, and that's what I'm trying to do in life. Just trying to put myself in awkward. You putting yourself in these uncomfortable positions, and starting to learn how to edit.
Yep.
It's uncomfortable.
100%. Or just people seeing me that I don't even know randomly. That's not natural to me. I'm an extrovert, yes, but putting myself out there and my opinions out there, it's a big deal to me.
Good.
It's a big point of growth for me. So
Right.
That's why I'm really excited.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. Serious. Yeah. Even I've been
because you're an extrovert.
in the natural environment.
Sure.
But when it comes to the digital environment,
gotcha.
I don't put myself out there.
Gotcha.
I don't.
You're gonna be doing that a lot more. So
yeah, I know, right?
That's good.
Put myself in it right now.
That's good.
But that's what I need, man.
All right.
That's what I need. But yeah, we've got some stuff to discuss, so let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was the NFL.
Yes.
Because I'm a big NFL buff.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about it,
Mm-hmm.
top to toe.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the social issues that go along with the NFL, everything about.
So you
it.
follow every
in-depth,
aspect
man.
of it.
In depth,
I
I
like
follow even the draft. I'm one of those
like
people who analyze the draft and the picks in the draft and what's new up and coming players. I watch college sport, and sometimes even if I can catch some high school games, I'll watch those just so I can see who might eventually be in the NFL.
Correct. It gives you an insight.
Yes.
You can't just watch the game and be like, okay, that's fine, but you need to figure out how this person is doing what they're doing and how they got there.
Exactly. And it's kind of really interesting watching a natural athlete who's just a raw talent grow into someone who's understands the game, strategizes really well, and then implements whatever that they've grown into
watch
over
them
the
grow.
years. It's so amazing. Just watching certain people. For example, I started watching Deshaun Watson, who plays for the Texans. I started watching him play games early in his college career and a couple high school games.
Yep.
And I knew off the bat this dude is gonna be
barring injury,
superstar.
he's gonna be
Superstar.
Okay.
And all the draft controversy, he was dropped in the draft because people NFL owners are racist. Anyway, let's not talk about that. We're not talking about that. But the one particular issue that I've always had with the NFL over the last 3 or so years now has been the kneeling, the protests, right?
Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick.
Can you imagine the dude hasn't played a game since 2017? And we're in
16.
2020 now. 2016.
2016.
Yeah. So
I had a joke about that, as in, but I then flipped the joke because we're in Australia. I flipped it to to Adam Goods. My girlfriend told me to flip it to Adam Goods because it makes more sense being in Australia.
Agreed.
And she told me that, and I was like, "That's spot on." And it works better. If I move to the States, I will use Colin Kaepernick. But yeah,
Adam Goods was. It's a perfect example, right? But it was.
Let me interject.
It was for Cap because he was pulled out of the sport altogether.
Yeah.
Like his ability to earn as a man in the thing that he wanted to do for the rest of his life or for a portion of his life until he retires was taken away from him.
So Adam Goods, for those that don't know, it all started off, I believe, he was playing a game against Collingwood and there was a young lady in the stands, a really young girl in the stands, and she yelled, I think she called him a monkey. He's an Indigenous Australian player.
Commonplace in the sport, let's just make that clear.
She called him a monkey, and he basically, it was on the sideline as the ball went out. So what he did was he called one of the security guards, pointed her out, and the security guards ejected her. Got her out of the stadium. Now, there was a big uproar in that people were saying, well, she was so young, he shouldn't have kind of pointed at her and got her removed at that point. But I get that point, but also people have to understand it's in the moment. Yeah. He doesn't have time to think. Yeah. I still don't think he did anything wrong.
No, not at all.
He had to address it. He didn't yell at her. He told the security, and they dealt with it. Now, for a young girl to kind of say that to an adult, a male, it's very disheartening. In that, I think to myself, well, she's been saying this quite often. Then, she's in an environment that this is commonplace. Yeah. So anyway, she got ejected. A lot of Australians were very mad at that. Yep. And so later on, Adam Goods, they were booing him wherever he went. Yeah. Every game that he played,
before this incident,
they were booing him. Now, if you think this guy is not an average player, I think he's a 2-time Brownlow medalist, which is the best player in the league. Yeah. And they were booing him, and they were booing him wherever he went, and it was really disappointing to see. And I remember one game, I think it was against Carlton. He did an Indigenous dance, and he pretended to throw a spear into the crowd. Yeah. And that just exacerbated the whole problem because everyone acted as if he threw a real spear at them, which was, people were just on social media, and the booing just intensified from the weeks ending, from the next few weeks, all the way up until he retired. They booed him into retirement, and this guy was a 300+ game player. Played for the Sydney Swans and it was fantastic. So it was a real shame to see that happen. Definitely. To Adam Goods, and he was an Australian of the Year. Sorry, let me go back. So he won the Australian of the Year, and people weren't happy about that. And they said he was divisive in his Australian of the Year speech. Now, if you go back and listen to the Australian of the Year speech, he talked about violence against women. He talked about equality, I believe, and he talked about Indigenous people. What is divisive about those three things?
Divisive about that. People don't like to be called out on their shit. That's why he's divisive.
And that just erupted and started the whole booing, and people were saying he was a flog, which is an Australian term. I've lived in Australia since '96. I have never heard that term before. Yeah. It was almost created for him. Yeah. I'm sure it was used before, but it was just on the side, it was really disappointing how they booed him into retirement. Yeah. And he's definitely one of the best players ever to play this game.
He is.
Not just because he's an Indigenous player. That's a fact.
That's just a straight up fact.
Unbelievable player.
It's stupid.
So please continue about Cap.
Yeah, so Cap essentially started just to protest police brutality and violence against brothers in custody, as well as racism. Obviously, we've discussed this issue at length last episode, so I won't get too much into what it was that he was protesting, but it was for that specific reason. He was protesting to eliminate police brutality and violence and racism in that context. And he He started off by sitting down, just like sitting in the locker room